All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. Before we get started, we want to, let you guys know we really appreciate all the feedback, all the comments from the last video. We really appreciate it. We're going to be on the recruiting grind here over the next month or so, as the early signing day is just around the corner. I believe it's in middle of December. So we'll be covering it as much as we can over the next few weeks as things come up, and commitments are coming up. So that'll be exciting. And make sure before we get into today's topic, go hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, because we've got a lot of videos coming up with football season. Championship November started. Basketball is about to start. Again, recruiting is going to be hot here over the next month or so, going into the spring. So a lot of good stuff coming. So make sure to turn on that notification bell so you know when we post a new video. Let's go ahead and get into it. We're coming off a bye week. Oklahoma is 9-0, should be the number 2 ranked team in the country, but the college football committee is not watching football at all. But we'll get into that towards the end of the video. But let's get into what this week's opponent is. Baylor, coming off of a devastating loss to Texas Christian. A former Sooner, Chandler Morris, completely demoralized them after they couldn't come back from losing a lead in the towards the end of the first half, and he just had an absolute game against.
He went for over 500 total yards against the Bears. Yeah, I think it was 461 passing and 70-something rushing.
Yeah,
3 total touchdowns. He had a day.
That exact line. So, go ahead, let us know what you think is going to happen during this weekend.
I think the reason the game with Baylor the Baylor and TCU game was so close, statistically speaking, I think they match up pretty well. I think Baylor has 20th overall offense in the country, or 21st something, and I'm pretty sure Texas Christian's not too far off that pace, probably somewhere in the 30s. And I think both have horrible defenses. So then it came down to who's going to play better on offense. And unfortunately for Baylor, and in a way, unfortunately for Oklahoma, Chandler Morris decided to go out there and just ball out, and kind of steal a game from Baylor there. Part of me thinks that Baylor kind of did what we did against Kansas, although they did it against a much better opponent in TCU. But I think they're kind of thinking, if we win next week against Oklahoma, we're in the driver's seat to get in the Big 12 title game, all this and that. And TCU said, hey, we're here though, and Chandler Morris went out there and played really well, and stole a game from Baylor, because Baylor still, despite what I think is they took TCU lightly, they still had an ample opportunity to win that game, and unfortunately for them, and like I said, in a way, unfortunately for Oklahoma, they didn't do it.
Yeah, and it, like you said, I think it was just kind of the classic trap game for Baylor, and just like next week will be a somewhat trap game for Oklahoma State. They're looking ahead to the end of the season, which Oklahoma has multiple times, I think, throughout the year. Like prime example being the Kansas game, and earlier in the season, it seemed like, we were taking some of the opponents slightly, especially Nebraska, even though it's reigniting a rivalry. It shouldn't have been that close. Obviously, we look a lot better now because Nebraska is playing these Big Ten opponents close.
Nebraska's a weird team. I don't think they're very good, because at the end of the day, you are what you're.
Just restart your thought about Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska, they're a weird team. That loss, or that win we had against them, it may have not looked great at the time, and it still may not look, terrific or whatever. But I don't think Nebraska's great. You are what your record says, and their record says they're 3-6 or 3-7. Not good. But they've lost so many one-score games to good, highly ranked teams. They lost to Michigan State in overtime by 3. They missed 2 kicks against Ohio State, and they ended up losing by 9. Who knows what happens if they can get a kick? Nebraska's a weird team. They play everybody close. That win doesn't look so bad. And like you mentioned earlier in the video, we're going to go into the committee and stuff, because I think we both have some thoughts about maybe Ohio State should drop too if since they barely beat a ranked or an unranked team and not in convincing fashion.
Yeah, but like you said, we'll get into it in a little bit. Before we do that, let's dig a little deeper into the Baylor Bears. This weekend's opponent. Their defense is pretty on par with Oklahoma's. The biggest difference is so in total defense, we're pretty similar. They're ranked 57. Oklahoma currently is ranked 63rd. Our rushing defense is ranking wise significantly better. We are the 17th and they are 34th, but Oklahoma is ranked 113th right now in passing yards allowed, while they're only number 80, which is still not great. But Oklahoma's obviously had a lot of struggles with all of our talent in the defensive back rooms being hurt. A lot of shifting happening. Obviously, at the beginning of the season, it was just a lot of commotion on the defensive side. But this week seems to be, for Oklahoma at least, can we keep the momentum going on the defensive side of the ball after the Tech game? Because we had them, I see it as we kept them to 14 points, even though the final score says 21, but it was a trash time touchdown. Really, this defense held them down to 14, which was the goal at the beginning of the year. Grinch said that he expected this defense to hold all the opponents to 3 touchdowns or less. And when he had a fully healthy defense, he was able to do that last week.
And against not, Texas Tech's not like they're not world beaters. Obviously, they're not going to blow your brakes off. But by no means are they like a horrible team. I think they came into the game 5-3. Usually in Texas Tech down there, they're pretty good offensively. So yeah, and granted it was one game, but it was very encouraging to see. The Sooners put together a complete game offensively and defensively. And as you're mentioning, going into the Baylor game, I think there's no reason we shouldn't be able to continue that. Just because I don't think Baylor's that great offensively. I know they're 20th overall, which that's not bad. That's not a bad place to be like on the stat sheet. But I don't think Bohannon's very good at quarterback. I think he made some pretty bad throws against TCU that ended up costing him. That one he threw in the end zone, that he kind of had him. I don't know. It was kind of weird, but either way, he threw a horrible ball and it hit the TCU defender in the helmet, bounced off for a pick. I don't think Bohannon is gonna be anybody that's gonna kill us. I think if everything goes to plan, Jalen Redmond can keep playing the way he's playing. It was so good to have him back. DJ Graham, just Key Lawrence playing at corner, I think was a huge difference too that we hadn't seen all season. That helped us out a lot. Hopefully hopefully we can keep it rolling. I think we should.
Yeah, and to touch on kind of Key playing corner last week, Lincoln earlier today mentioned that it's still too early for him to decide on Woody's status and Theo Weiss on if they're going to be playing this weekend.
For them to come back this weekend.
From what I saw, it's still just up in the air. But with him saying that, I feel like it's pretty doubtful for this week at least. Maybe against Iowa State because they are always a difficult opponent. It seems like Matt Campbell brings every trick play he's ever drawn up, probably since he was 10 years old against Lincoln Riley. So
Matt Campbell's not afraid of OU.
No,
that's one thing we can say about him.
Yeah, if he's a fiery dude when he's coaching against Lincoln, and it's fun to watch, but also annoying because it seems like we should be destroying them sometimes by a lot more.
At this point in the season, this is Oklahoma's toughest stretch. There's no doubt about it. These next 4 games are going to be the toughest we've played so far. Which it's championship November. That's kind of what you expect. So yeah, we gotta come ready to bring it.
Yep. So you mentioned their quarterback, not great. His stat line this year is 1,900 yards, a little over 1,900 yards on 223 attempts, 145 completions, so 65% completion percentage, 5 picks, 6 sacks. So the sacks, you could speak to the offensive line not holding up their end of the bargain, but sometimes it is on the quarterback.
6 sacks, though, is not that bad. I mean, for this point of the season, what have we played 9 games now or something? He's only been sacked 6 times. That's not the worst thing ever. It's pretty good, actually.
Yep. So the glaring thing right now is his interceptions, and he's coming off kind of a bad game. I believe he threw 2 picks against TCU last week, and TCU's passing defense especially, is awful. They're down there with Oklahoma. I believe they're like 100 and they might be like right above Oklahoma. I can't remember the exact number, but they're in the hundreds. So not great. So that's a good thing for Oklahoma. Him coming might be in a slump in the worst part of the season, which stinks for Baylor, but great for Oklahoma and Oklahoma State
Yeah.
going into this last stretch.
I truly think that the return of Redmond and key playing corner are the two biggest dividends that we saw last week, and that's not going to change, at least for a long period of time. And you and I have talked about this off record. If Key Lawrence keeps playing the way he's playing, there's no way, even with the return of Woody Washington, that he's out of the lineup. He's gonna start opposite Woody, and to be honest, that's probably going to be when you see Oklahoma's defense at its best. Key Lawrence has these past 3 weeks has been just the most impactful player on our defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, and one is probably the experience he brings from Tennessee, but two, he's probably feeling a lot more comfortable in Grinch's offense. It seems like even though it's very simple from what experts believe it to be, it's a very simple defense. His mantra is speed D because he wants his players to not be thinking and just reacting to the ball. So it's probably his comfort level at this point is a lot better. We're really far into the season at this point. He's had a lot of practice. So I think you're 100% right. He's going to keep playing. And the good thing about Grinch's defense is that it's very much a rotational defense. He may start, but we're still going to see Billy Bowman go out there and try to make plays, especially at the nickel spot. I think that's going to be, even though he's had a rough year this year, and I would probably attribute that to the injuries in the defensive back room had him flip flopping.
He's not playing where he's supposed to be playing. I think he's meant to be in that nickel spot, and it's totally different being on the boundary outside. There's still a lot of high hopes for Billy Bowman. DJ last week was obviously very impactful for OU as well. We definitely look better with not even at full strength yet, but just to have most of the guys back, and hopefully that momentum carries. And like I mentioned earlier, I truly think it will.
Yeah, and you alluded to it earlier as well when you mentioned Key's performances. The return of Jalen Redmond is something that should not be downplayed at all, because that adds not just another player to the middle of the defensive line where Grinch has his big four again in Coe, Perrion, Jalen, and Ellison, but you can take IT back out to the edge opposite of Nick Bonito so that they can just pin their ears back and go.
The game he had Saturday, I think he had 2 pass deflections, strip sack, a couple tackles in the backfield. He's just Isaiah Thomas is a good football player no matter where he's at, but he's night and day when he's playing on the edge. And with the return of Redmond, you have that opportunity now. And with the return of TJ Graham, we just got a little bit better defensively as far as covering the pass with playing corner. So it's some things that if there was ever a time to figure out what might work, it's a good thing Oklahoma figured it out in November.
Yep, definitely. Now going over to the offensive side of the ball, Caleb was hot last game. He became the third Sooner in Oklahoma history to throw for 6 touchdowns and no interceptions. I believe no turnovers at all.
Yeah.
So he joined great company and 2 Heisman winners in Baker and Kyler. So, it might be a little bit early, but Caleb, I believe, will be a finalist in the Heisman running. For whatever reason, probably just because he didn't play all season, he won't be the winner, but he should definitely be the favorite going into next year. We'll see where that ends up going for him. But this offense is starting to find their groove with Superman at the helm as QB1, and the receivers are performing night and day from what they were performing with Spencer Rattler. And that's not to say that Spencer is bad by any means, but these guys just seem to turn it on for Caleb Williams. Marvin Mims immediately just seemed to have chemistry with Caleb. Jaden had a 3 touchdown game in Caleb's first full game as Oklahoma quarterback. And last week, Mario Williams had his breakout game as an Oklahoma receiver. So
he was over 100 yards. Yeah, he was. Just going back to your point, just with everything Caleb Williams related, specifically for the Baylor game, I think Baylor, kind of like OU, unfortunately, kind of has some struggles against mobile quarterbacks, guys that can get out of the pocket and not only throw it, but also take off and run a little bit. Obviously, what Chandler Morris did to him. and Chandler Morris, at the end of the day, is a poor man's Caleb Williams. That's probably the truest way to say it, in my opinion. So Caleb should have a huge day, and I'm obviously biased, but I don't see any chance in which Baylor can win, because even if they can score on us, which, I don't think it will happen, but at the end of the day, you never know. It is an OU defense that who knows what's going to happen out there. If we get into a shootout with Baylor, that's advantage Oklahoma every single time.
Yeah, definitely. Especially again, going back to the defense, I think we're much improved, but it'll be interesting to see. I mean, you mentioned it just now. Caleb is that dual threat quarterback that Baylor and Oklahoma have trouble stopping. So will Kennedy Brooks be back in the mix? I think he will be, because it is going to be an away game, and we had a set.
Not only is it an away game, and at this point in the season, Oklahoma's 9-0, toughest 3 games of the season. All 3 of these schools that we're about to play want to, they want to change that loss column. Everybody wants to. So we're going to get everybody's best shot. The crowd, as you mentioned, is going to be rocking. But beyond all of that stuff, because at the end of the day, that has nothing game, as much as the fans don't play the game. It is tough to be at a tough environment, whatever, but they don't play the game. You mentioned Baylor's rush defense as being bottom in the country. So why would we not, especially early, try to exploit that?
So their pass defense is, their rush defense is 34. So they're, top third. Oklahoma's better, but I believe the team that they struggled against the most in rushing was Oklahoma State, if I remember correctly. Let me double check that box score. So yeah, Oklahoma State's running back went for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns on 36 attempts, and Spencer Sanders had 76 yards on 12 carries. So they definitely struggled against probably one of the better.
But at the end of the day, that's 2, I guess. Chandler Moore's more mobile than Spencer Sanders, but at the end of the day, Spencer Sanders can run a little bit, and 12 for 76. I mean, that Caleb Williams should be licking his chops, in my opinion, about what's this defense is about to face.
Yeah, the only good run, or I guess top end running back they were able to stop was Bijan a couple of weeks ago, and that, I think, it's something unexplainable is happening in Texas. Caleb Williams broke them.
At the end of the day, yeah, Texas is going down. Just it's an unrelated topic, something we can dive into at a later video. My roommate mentioned it. He brought it up earlier, a couple weeks ago, or after maybe a week ago. I don't know. And I didn't think about it at the time, but is Steve Sarkisian already on the hot seat? And again, we can talk about that later, but
it'll be interesting. If you guys think he's on the hot seat, throw it down in the comments. Let us know what you think about Texas. But yeah, this game this weekend, it'll be a tough one just because it is away. Like you said, we're the last undefeated team in the Big 12. Baylor still has a chance to get into the Big 12 championship. So
everything to go right, though.
Yeah, they have to win this game. This is a must win for both teams, but if anyone is, urgency, there's a fire under their ass, it's got to be Baylor. Not that Oklahoma doesn't want to win this, but Baylor needs every single thing to go their way to make it to the Big 12. And I don't think Oklahoma's going to let that happen.
Yeah.
These guys finally got the rest that they probably needed. Caleb it seemed like he got some time to step away from football for a second, just so he can relax his mind. I believe he went back home for a couple days during the break. So he should be ready to go. Hopefully he is in the mindset that he's got to destroy teams. This, not just him, but this entire team, both sides of the ball, because, and we can get into our next topic here. And these last rankings showed that the committee favors the SEC and the Big Ten, and Oklahoma's got to absolutely blow people out.
And we've talked about it too. The biggest travesty of the rankings to me, obviously, well, there's 2. Bama being at number 2 was the dumbest thing on the planet. That's strictly because they're saying their name is Alabama. And Oregon at 4 is the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I still don't understand how you justify that. Yeah, they went on the road and beat Ohio State, who in their last couple weeks, whatever, have not looked overly tremendous either. Like they just struggled with Nebraska. Purdue, I don't know. Purdue's going to beat them this weekend, or at least they're going to play them close in the shoe as well. In Oregon, their loss is against freaking Stanford, who got boat raced by Kansas State. Those are just facts, and the committee didn't look into that at all. It's oh man, though I think those first rankings, not that they truly matter at the end of the day, because as Lincoln Riley said it himself, whenever the first rankings are about to come out, they asked him, what do you think about tonight, or whatever. And he said, I think his exact quote was something along the lines of, it's a bunch of garbage to kill time until the end. And that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely right. The only weight I put on these first rankings almost every year is just the committee is showing the public, because it's usually if I'm wrong, let me know, but I'm pretty sure they rotate members of the committee almost every year, if not a fully new committee every year. So this committee is showing, first rankings show how you are perceiving this football season. And the fact that they put Oregon on number 4, I 100% agree with you. It makes no sense, because their loss is to an awful team in Stanford. And the only reason they're up there is to make Ohio State look better at the end, because I think that the committee believes that Oregon will lose to Utah, if not to someone else, but likely Utah.
What the committee is really going to hate is when Michigan goes on the road this week to Penn State, lose, and then Michigan goes and beats Ohio State. They're going to be like, "Damn, man, maybe we screwed that one up." And I think there's a legitimate chance that happens. I'm not really high on either Michigan or Ohio State. And Penn State at Penn State Saturday night, or Saturday, whatever that game is for Michigan, that place is going to be really rocking. And I would not be shocked in the slightest if Penn State beat them.
They should just do a last-minute whiteout announcement, just to get a little bit more under their skin.
And even if they don't have it a whiteout, those students are going to show it's going to be a whiteout.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun game to watch on TV. But I think you're right. The committee put themselves in a situation where they're either major winners or major losers at the end. Because if the scenario you just described goes the way it did, Michigan losing this week against Penn State, and then Jim Harbaugh somehow finding a way to finally beat his rivals down in Columbus. If that happens, then it's going to be just a toss-up. And at that point,
not only that, with the way Ohio State's playing, say if Ohio State comes out of the Big Ten, I think they're Big Ten East, I think.
Yeah.
That Wisconsin team in the Big Ten West that's going to come out, I think they're going to give them everything they want in the Big Ten title game. And I would not. Ohio State has done nothing more than what we have done. I don't understand what's so much on their resume. But I mean, at the end of the day, we both think the first rankings were shit. But again, they don't really matter. Where do you have tomorrow going, or Tuesday going? Because, or I guess
today, when this video releases today. So Ohio State should definitely be punished. They're not going to be punished at the degree Oklahoma would if we had that close of that good win or tough win against a very average to bad Nebraska team. They're probably going to be maybe knocked down 1. So what were they, number 5? So they'll probably be knocked down to 6. And that's the unfortunate part again. Cincinnati is going to be probably knocked down to 9 or 10 because they almost lost to Tulsa.
I can see that. And I mean, to be honest, like if you wanted to talk about a horrible win, that's about as horrible a win as you can get against a Tulsa team who's really not good at all. And they were 1 yard away from, potentially going to overtime with them. Not a great win, especially when you had game day. And that was like, yeah, Cincinnati should definitely fall. And obviously Michigan State has to fall. I think it's going to be really interesting tomorrow or today if they put Sparty over Oklahoma.
So you want give us your top 6. What is the committee? What do you expect the committee to do this week?
They're gonna keep Georgia at 1. There's no doubt about that. And that one I think we can both agree at this moment in time. There's no arguing it. 2 is still going to be Alabama. And they did not play well either Saturday against an unranked LSU team at home. And if that LSU quarterback can throw the ball a little bit, I think that they have a legitimate chance to win. But that's not here nor there. 3 was Michigan State, so Oregon's going to go to 3, even though I don't think they looked all that impressive against Washington, who's not very good. 4, they'll probably bump Ohio State into that 4 spot, despite a not great win. I think they'll bump them into 4. 5 will be. See, that's where I have interesting. It's Michigan, because they had them ahead of us, and they boat raced Indiana or something Saturday, and then Oklahoma 6. And I think they dropped Cincy to 7. And watch out for Oklahoma State. I can see Oklahoma State being in that 8 or 9 spot.
Yeah,
which would be good for us.
definitely. So on the Oklahoma State part, I'll touch on that after I give my rankings, but I have a very similar top four. And my 5 and 6 are exactly like yours. I think they'll bump up Michigan to 5 and Oklahoma to 6. Because at the end of the day, Michigan won and they'll be moved up and they'll want to the committee is going to want to continue to have a reason to boost Ohio State's record. So they'll be 5, Oklahoma at 6. Now, Georgia, like you said, they're undeniably the best team in the country so far. They have a top offense, a top defense. It doesn't look like there's any cracks in the armor as of now.
Offense isn't that great, I don't think.
Statistically, they're up there. So, we'll see how their stretch of the season goes. They'll have to face Alabama more than likely in the SEC championship. So that'll be an interesting game to watch for everyone's destiny at that point. But Georgia 100% number one now. Where I disagree with you, I don't think that they will keep Alabama just because their constant has been you're going to get punished if you lose close. Even though they have a loss, which is they shouldn't be up there anyways. But like you said, they're Alabama. So I think Oregon, because they won by a bigger margin and they have a win over a highly ranked team, is going to be number 2. So I've got Georgia, Oregon, and then Alabama at 3 will be their punishment for barely beating LSU. Will they get knocked down one spot and continue to be a playoff team? Ohio State will be number 4, like you said, and then again Michigan and Oklahoma to round up the top 6. And I believe, even though it probably won't happen, Notre Dame will probably be number 7. Oklahoma State should be up there. Like they should be kind of flirting with the possibility of putting Oklahoma State in the top 6. As much as it hurts me to say nice things about those guys, their defense is going to be the best defense that we face until we play, hopefully, Georgia in the championship game. Statistically, they're top 10 defense, total defense, and it doesn't seem like they really let anyone get into a groove, even against their tougher opponents, which was Texas. So, again, at the time, it was probably Texas, and they're one of Baylor's losses. They really make sure when they have you down, they're not going to let you back up. And I think that's going to be Oklahoma's big test when we get to Bedlam, and we'll talk about it, final week of the regular season. But Oklahoma State should definitely be in the running for being a top 6 team, and they should be number 7, in my opinion, come the rankings later tonight.
Yeah, that'll be good for us too if they are. Tonight will be interesting to see where everything falls. But you and I are in agreement at 6, which is not a bad spot to be in the second place. They're the second set of rankings. One thing we didn't do in this video yet is score prediction for the Baylor game.
You want to start it off?
Well, it's the line's -6, right?
So it moved today to 5.5 in Oklahoma.
5.5. Okay, I'm gonna take Oklahoma on that 5.5. You can make it. I'll lock that one in. Let's go 37-20, 21.
37-21. Okay. That wouldn't be, I wouldn't hate it. It's a win. And hopefully the defense kind of just kept them to a low score until the end, trash time touchdown again. So I agree. They're definitely recovering, but I think the offense is going to, not only do they have to, but they will show their dominance against the average to below average Baylor defense. And it's going to be a 54-24 win over the Baylor Bears.
I like yours a lot more.
I think at this point we have to, like the committees, they want to see big blowouts. And if we continue to win these close games, even though at the end of the day, if we win close games for the rest of the year,
a ranked team, they'll come out tonight somewhere in the probably high teens.
Yeah, they'll probably be like 14 or 15 because A&M won.
They were 12 last week, so I imagine they drop a little further than that. But
yeah, we'll see. But at the end of the day, Oklahoma could be a Big 12 champion undefeated, but we've got all these close wins, and Alabama's going to be a 2-loss.
However, no, because if
loser.
Oklahoma State, by the time you meet them, if everything goes well, they will be in that 6-7 spot. And so,
Right.
like, if we beat the number 6 team in the country back to back, they can't. It's impossible, especially one of them as a true road game. They can't.
That's true. At this point, the Big Ten is kind of beating themselves up. So
And
you're right.
Sparty already lost, and Sparty and Michigan played. Or no, they already played. Sparty and Ohio State. Sparty plays somebody else who's highly ranked.
Ohio State.
Yeah, and so that obviously one of those are going to get their second loss. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think that Wisconsin team coming out of the Big Ten West is going to give likely Ohio State, but I mean, we'll see. I think they can give them a game though.
Yeah.
And watch out for Purdue. They've been knocking off everybody who's highly ranked in the top 5.
Purdue's always a scary team to play in championship November.
And Ohio State's got them coming up, I think, in a couple weeks.
And that's going to be scary for them. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago when the young guy that was a big Purdue fan was at the game, and they just destroyed them. Yeah, and they destroyed the Buckeyes.
His first name was Tyler. I don't remember. Yeah.
Tyler
Strong was all over the student section. It was pretty cool, but yeah, that was a horrible moment that's awful, but at least you got to see them beat the hell out of Ohio State.
And they squandered Ohio State's chances for the championship that year. I think that's the year that Alabama went on to sneak in at the number 4 seed and beat Georgia at the last second of the playoff, if I remember the year correctly.
Went to the national title.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, history is history. We can't do anything about it now. But this is the year to get number 8. This is the year Caleb Williams can immortalize himself in Oklahoma football.
If Caleb Williams wins the title this year for Oklahoma, I'm getting Superman tattooed on me somewhere.
Bet. All right. You guys heard it here first. It's recorded. It's on YouTube. We can go back. There's no getting out of this one. So
I will get it.
All right. So I guess at the end of the year, we could see a tattoo on Brandon somewhere on the face.
No face. That's off limits.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to say before we wrap it up?
That'll do it for me.
All right, cool. Well, thank you guys all for watching. We really appreciate it. Like we said at the beginning in the video, make sure you go hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, turn on the notification bell so you guys know every time we release a new video. Because as we said, there's going to be a lot of content coming up over the next few months with basketball season right around the corner, early signing day about a month away, and football coming into the home stretch where it's going to be win or go home kind of situation for Oklahoma. So make sure to turn on the notification bell. We're going to get the content out as fast as we can to you guys, and make sure you're leaving a comment. Let us know, is Sark on the hot seat already after only one season and really letting down the Longhorn fans? I didn't
believe it at first, but he's got to be.
He's probably, and we'll talk about it in another video, because we've also got some news in Oklahoma with Grinch. Even though he wasn't hired for the head coaching job at Texas Tech, obviously that is an option for him in the future if jobs come up. In the past, he said he wasn't interested in a head coaching job, but that's obviously changed for whatever reason. So we'll discuss that as well. Let us know what you think in the comment section, and give us a score prediction. Will Oklahoma cover? What score do you think will happen? Will it be a defensive bout, or is the offense just going to absolutely run over the Baylor Bears this Saturday in Waco, Texas? Let's go ahead and just go win this game. But other than that,
that's the mission this week.
Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.